What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. I wanted to do another question and answer episode. Truth be told, I recorded one of these this morning, but my voice was kind of scratchy and it was annoying me, and I'm doing it again. So if it sounds rehearsed at all, it probably still won't, but if it does, that's why. So, I still have a bunch of questions left over from my 4,000 subscribers giveaway contest. I appreciate everybody who entered that contest. It's still going strong right now and it is active. So, at least probably by the time I post this, it'll still be active. And then I'll pick a winner relatively soon. It seems like it slowed down quite a bit, though, so I might pull the plug on it soon. I'm sure most of you already saw it, of course. So, another thing, I have Disc Golf Nerd stamped custom discs in stock right now. I don't know how you could miss that based on the fact that I have posted a few videos about it. I've also posted about it on Facebook and Instagram, so if somehow you missed that, they are available, and there's only about 10 or so left as of right now. Yeah, pretty much 10 left, a few defenders, a few anchors, and I also decided that if people want them, I will sell some wardens as well. All the EMACs are gone. All the air trespasses are spoken for as well. So big thank you to everybody who ordered one, for sure. I really appreciate it, and I'm super stoked about the possibility of getting these in your bag. It's just really cool. I think that's awesome, and having a Disc Golf Nerd stamped disc in your bag would mean a lot to me. I think that would be really cool, and yeah, if I ever run into anybody out there in the world who's throwing one, that'll be a super trip. But we'll see. You never know. All right, let's get into some questions. I should have like the Disc Golf Answer Man music, like the little like question music or whatever Bobby plays. I should probably have that, but nope. I'm not gonna do that. Maybe I'll do some funk intros instead. So Joe 81-190 says, if you could only use one mid-range to throw, which would it be, and what is a good beginner's mid-range? Well, my favorite mid-range is the Compass, mostly the Opto Compass, the Latitude 64 Ricky Wysocki signature compass. I have some Optos. I have a Gold Line that I'm not currently carrying, although I also like that one. It's a little more stable. It's a little flat top, so a little bit less glide, a little more stability to it for sure. I also have an Opto Sparkle that's got a bunch of stability to it, which I really like. That's a great disc. It's I mean, it's not like overstable, but it's definitely more stable than a standard Opto, which is nice to kind of layer them in the bag. So I really like the Compass, although I am carrying the Latitude 64 Gobi. Right now I'm carrying that, and it's working out really well. I went straight in the bag after my first testing session, and having some really good success throwing that thing. So really, it's like a farther flying, faster compass for me, so I really like that disc as well. As for good beginners mid-ranges, pretty much anything that's understable or neutral, kind of straight flying mid-range is going to be just fine. Comets, Buzzes are great. Also the Meteor from Discraft, all those are great mid-ranges for beginners. I also recommend from Innova stuff like the Mako 3 or the Wombat 3. Those are great straight flying mid-ranges. Innova has quite a few others as well. And then you also have the Trilogy stuff, kind of like the Gobi. Compass would be a good one. It's a little bit more stable, but it's still very versatile and will show you the different release angles quite nicely. So it's a good learning tool in that sense. The Westside Discs Tersis, the Truth. I mean, there's a bunch of great mid-ranges out there, and I think anything that's just not overstable should be a good option for a beginner to learn on. You want to stay away from anchors, drones, Justice for sure. You don't want to be throwing that when you're a beginner. And yeah, that sort of thing. You don't want to stay away from the super overstable stuff, but any kind of straight to neutral, understable style mid-range will probably work out just fine for you. If you have the chance to hold a few in your hand, and I would pick whichever one feels nicest and see what it does. Kevin Herr asks, what's the most challenging aspect of playing disc golf for you? The thing that's hardest for me is probably the thing that's hardest for anybody in all sports, I think, really, when you boil it down, and that's consistency. Just playing to my potential more often maintains a lot of difficulty for me and most players. I think that's what kind of separates golfers from pros and amateurs. And yeah, for me, it's just like when I'm at my best, I can putt pretty well. I've been putting really well so far this spring and early summer for the most part. My approaching is usually pretty solid. I can get up and down most of the time, and I'm throwing pretty accurate lines most of the time off the tee as well when I'm at my potential. But it's just being able to do that all the time that is difficult and challenging for me. So yeah, as far as specific techniques or shots, I don't really have a forehand off the tee at all, so that's more than a challenge. I just flat out don't have one. And then also the like overheads and stuff, I don't throw those either. But yeah, just being consistent and playing as well as I know I can is the most difficult aspect for me. Joe Fowler asks, what's your favorite slower speed driver? I'm not a big fairway driver guy, to be honest. I think the slowest driver in my bag is a Triple X, and it's really almost like a mid-range for me. I can throw a Compass farther than I can throw a Triple X, undoubtedly. I can definitely throw the Gobi farther, and I can probably throw some of my putters farther than I can throw the Triple X. Depending, I guess. And maybe if I like really tried to throw a flex with the Triple X or something, it is still a driver, but it's got such a little glide and so much fade to it that it really doesn't go very far for me at all. And that's not why I carry it. It's just for those really steep angle, overstable shots, skip shots, and that sort of thing. But yeah, so I think the slower speed drivers that I really like are still kind of a little bit faster, and they're like 9 speeds or so. The Convict and the Fury, I throw those quite a bit, and I like them a lot. The Convict's a really nice, somewhat overstable kind of workhorse fairway for me. I don't have to worry about flipping it much at all. Maybe it'll pop up and ride for a bit, but always has a strong fade, which I like, and then still gets good distance. And then the Fury's working out really well. The Fury's a 9-speed, I believe it's 6 for glide, and it just carries for days. It's a really versatile flyer that works very nicely with my arm speed and my throwing style. So for any kind of flippy shots, uphill drives, turnovers, hyzer flip to flat, hyzer flip to turnover, a lot of different lines out there, rollers, the Fury is a really great disc, so I'm digging that one for sure. But there's lots of other great lower speed drivers. I've never been a big T-Bird or Eagle guy, really. I've never had any of those or really enjoyed them. And for the most part, I like to throw a lot of putters. If I need to step it up to a mid-range, I will. And then I'll usually go straight to a distance driver for the most part, other than, like I said, the few slower discs I have in the bag. Justifer asks if you had only 2 discs to play a full round with, which 2 would you choose? So, if I get 2 discs, a putter is definitely going to be one of them. I will take my Jawbreaker Magnet, and then probably a mid-range for your kind of average course, just because I know I can be really accurate with that. And then if it's a longer course, I'd probably take a putter and a driver. If it's a really short course, I may just take 2 putters, actually. My main putting putter, and then a slightly more stable, farther flying putter like a Proxy, or maybe a little bit more stable soft magnet, or one of my non-putting Jawbreakers even. You never know. No, I wouldn't take 2 Jawbreakers. That makes no sense. I'd most likely do a putter and a mid, or a putter and a driver, depending on the course. But yeah, if it was really short, I would throw a lot of putters anyway, so I don't really need anything more than that. Justin Jenkins, how many different states have you played disc golf in? So, I played in Utah, outside of Salt Lake City, one time. Interesting. Your discs fly a little bit farther there, and they're a little bit more overstable as well. So I thought that was interesting due to the altitude. If you guys aren't familiar with that does happen. By the way, if there's any background noise, because I have my window open, it's summer, so I'm trying to get some air in here. I've also played in West Virginia once on a family visit to that area. I have no idea what the name of the course was. It was pretty wooded, up and over this hill and all the way back down again, and quite fun. It was a cool round. It was a little sketchy because I was up there by myself and I wasn't familiar, and it was really quiet. There was like nobody else playing, and it was a pretty substantial hike up and down the hill. But it was cool. I had a good time. Good round. And then I've played in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, one time when I was there to be married for my wedding, and yeah, we played Tupelo Bay, which is like a little pitch and putt golf course that also has baskets. So you throw from the same tee pad, and the basket is like off of the green somewhere in a different spot. It was relatively, cheesy or whatever, but wasn't. I didn't play all that well. It was a long time ago, and I wasn't very good in those days. But that was the only round to date that I've played with my dad, so that's kind of a cool one for me. And then obviously, Oregon is where I live, and then Washington State. There's a few courses over the river in Washington that I've played as well. John Bell asks, what is your favorite plastic type? Well, I'd have to say, at this point in my playing career, it would be Opto or Lucid Plastic from the Trilogy brands. It's definitely my favorite. I have a bunch of it in my bag. I have the Opto Fury, the Lucid Convict, the Lucid Air Trespass, the Lucid Trespass, the Opto Compass, the Opto Sparkle Compass, also the Opto Gobi. So yeah, I really like that plastic. It's great. It's super durable, bright colors. It still has a good grip and feel in my hand. I don't have a lot of issue with it slipping out of my hand by any means. Has a good bit of flexibility, but it's still consistently released, and I like it. It's good stuff. I also really like the Jawbreaker for my magnets, for my putters. Feels great. I like a lot of different plastic types, but if I had to pick one to go with for my whole bag, it would probably be Opto Lucid Plastic. Moving on, Mackie D. Well, I know your favorite is Ricky, but who is number 2? And then he goes on to say he would really like to win this one, meaning the this giveaway contest. Probably Big Germ. I like watching him play quite a bit. He seems like a cool guy, and I like his skill set. As we talked about in the last episode, his effortless forehand, backhand. He's really fun to watch. And yeah, I like Big Germ. He seems like a really fun-loving dude, chill guy, and everybody seems to get along well with him. I have plenty of golfers that I root for. I like Barry Schultz. I like Michael Johansson, Nate Doss. I'll usually want to see Ulibarri do well. I enjoy watching Nico play. I'm still just fine watching Paul McBeth throw. I see him all the time, but I still enjoy watching him. I just enjoy it more when Ricky wins, I guess. But yeah, Ricky's still my favorite far and away, as you know, and mentioned in the comment. But I'd say probably Big Germ. Nate Doss is up there. I like him quite a bit. And I'm a fan of a lot of different golfers, and for the most part, I just want to see people throw good lines. I don't care if I've ever even heard your name before. If you throw a nice line, I'm happy to watch, and I'm a fan. Naomi Downs asks, besides your podcast, what do you recommend to help grow the sport? So, the podcast here is just one small aspect of my channel, but it is a fun one that I do enjoy. If I'm going to make recommendations for how folks can help grow the sport, I guess I would say just don't be afraid to talk about disc golf. If people ask you what you're into, tell them you like disc golf and tell them why. Explain it to them if they've never heard of it. I will do that. I train a lot of folks at work and stuff, and I'll always ask them, what do you do for fun? What are you into? Just to try to get to know somebody. And if they ask me back, I'll always say I'm a big disc golfer. I run a YouTube channel for disc golf, and I try to let them know what it's all about. And hopefully a lot of them lately have said, oh, at least, oh, I've heard of that, or that looks fun, or I tried that once, or a few people have been like, oh, sweet, I love disc golf, it's fun, and the amount of people that have had that reaction to it has definitely grown in the time that I've started playing. So I think we're doing a lot of the right things, and also just share disc golf media. If you're on social media, especially if you have a lot of friends on Facebook or Instagram, or followers on Instagram and that sort of thing, post stuff about disc golf. Let people know that you're into it. Post some of the tournament coverage for our best players and stuff like that. I think is pretty translatable. I've shown people, Jomez coverage or CCDG coverage. It's really crisp on a nice HD TV when you're hanging out at a party or whatever. And just let people know that you're into it and show it to them so they get a feel for what it looks like. I think it translates. It's definitely impressive to see some of the putts and the shots that they're throwing out there, and I don't think people realize just how intense disc golf can get. So just sharing stuff on social media and just being a fan of the game and let people know that you're into it. And then obviously, if you have anybody that in your personal life that you can bring out on the course and give them a nice understable putter or mid range and teach them how to throw and get through a couple rounds with them, and hopefully they have a good time, and it goes from there. I mean, that's always the best way you can help grow the sport, is to get more players involved. And if you have siblings or family members or friends or whoever, people you work with, and you see if they want to come out and throw, give them a disc and see what you can do. Calvin Evans asks, what's your favorite course you've played? I have a lot of favorites, and I do like the variation in my disc golf experience. I like wooded courses, and I also like to play courses that are more open where I can throw longer shots. I like short courses where I can throw ace runs and just carry a couple of putters and just throw some shots. I like that too. I mean, I like it all. One of my favorite places to go play disc golf is Horning's Hideout, just because there's multiple different things you can play there, different courses and different feel. So yeah, I like that. I like that place a lot. Stubbs Stewart State Park is one of my favorite places to play golf. It is an amazing, super epic forest disc golf course. It's really beautiful, and I love that place. Super quiet, very difficult and fun, and I really like that place a lot. Beautiful forest. It's just so quiet and peaceful down there, and very lush, and it's a beautiful place to hang out. And then, but I'd have to say my favorite course overall is Milo MacGyver State Park, and if I had to kind of pick one to play forever, it would probably be Milo. It's just such an amazing complex, and yeah, 2 courses there as well, kind of 1.5 that gets expanded to 2, and it's got it all. It's got long holes, short holes, wooded, open, technical, big hyzers. I mean, it's got everything. I love that place. Aaron asks, let's see. I keep like trying to highlight the question, and then this like bar jumps up in front of it. I have these questions all copy and pasted into a Word document so I don't lose them. Okay, so Aaron asks, thanks for all the effort and information you put into your videos. Thank you. Thank you for watching. I always walk away feeling like I know more about discs I'm contemplating picking up because of them. If you had to use one disc for one round, which disc would it be and why? Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you for the kind words, Aaron. I appreciate your support. If I had to pick one disc, it would probably be a magnet of some kind, most likely a Jawbreaker. If it was a really long course, I may consider using a mid-range. I couldn't get away with only having a driver. I don't think I would enjoy playing around like that. I mean, I could. It wouldn't be that big of a deal, but trying to putt with a driver would annoy the hell out of me, I would think. The mid-range, I can throw relatively far, and I still feel like I could putt okay with it. But yeah, it would probably be a putter if it's a shorter to medium length course. If it's a really long course, I would pick some type of neutral mid-range, like a Gobi or maybe a Compass, one of the two. Moving on, Tom Thompson asks, what do you suggest the best way to find the right discs for me besides buying them and finding out disc isn't for me? So far, my drivers that I have and work well for me are the ABC Secret Weapon or MVP Orbital, and I can get discs inside of them. Okay, so the best way to find the right discs for you besides buying them and finding out they aren't for you, it's probably just doing research, reading about the different discs and the flight descriptions on the websites and stuff like that. And not to just kind of shamelessly promote myself, but I do have about 151 different discs that I have reviewed. Keep in mind that throughout the time I have been reviewing discs, my skill level has kind of changed along with that. And I assume that there's more than a few discs that if I would go back and review them now, I might consider them slightly different. But I did my best at the time to try to let you guys know what I thought of the disc and what you can expect from it before you buy it. You know, that's kind of the whole purpose of the reviews that I put out here, is just to try to let people get a sense of what to expect and hopefully I'm right about it enough that when they get it, it does work out for the intended purpose that they have for it. It seems like I'm somewhat effective with that. I don't think people would still be watching my reviews if I was just way off with my assessment. A lot of these discs, I try to give you guys kind of a basic sense from an average player's perspective, and hopefully I'm effective with that. But other than that, yeah, there's not a whole lot more you can do. I mean, if you have friends that you play with, or you play in a league or something like that, I know for me personally, if anybody wants to try throwing any of the discs I carry in my bag, I mean, unless you're trying to throw it over water or like in a really rough wooded course or something where a bad shot could lose it, I have no problem with people, trying out my plastic. In fact, I make people try stuff all the time. Like, oh, I think you'd like one of these. Just throw this thing, see what it does. I do that all constantly. So, yeah, maybe you could find some folks that can kind of loan you some of the discs out of their bag, or you can get a disc golf buddy. You guys just go out to a field and try both of your bags and just throw a bunch of plastic and try out some different things. That could be a good way. It sounds, though, to me, if you want some suggestions for me, it sounds like you like the understable plastic. Maybe you don't have much of of a big arm. You're kind of more of a slower arm speed player, so you need something with a little bit more understability to it. I know the MVP Orbital is supposed to be a very understable disc. I would go with something a little bit slower and understable, to kind of neutral, like the Opto Fury that I mentioned earlier. Great disc. For just straight shots when you don't have a lot of power. It would probably just stand up real straight for you all the way, and I think that could be a good option. But yeah, look for other understable discs. Maybe an Innova Mamba might be something that you would dig, or an Opto Jade could be a good flyer for you from Latitude 64. And search through my playlist. I got a lot of different discs in there that could potentially work out well for you. Tim Sanders says, do you find any one disc manufacturer flies farther than others? I've heard people say that certain companies' discs fly further, but not sure I believe that. Yeah, I'm not sure I believe that either. I will say that a lot of the Trilogy discs do seem to have a lot of glide, for sure. There are also some MVP discs that I found to be quite far flying, like the Inertia, and some of the mid ranges and the putters for MVP fly pretty far from my experience. But yeah, I would say that all brands can be thrown very far, and they all have discs that fly farther than others in their lineup. But I don't necessarily feel like any one manufacturer has a noticeable amount of extra distance out of their plastic. But I do tend to get really good distance out of Trilogy plastic. But one of the farthest flying discs in my bag overall is probably the Discraft Thrasher. So it's hard to say, but yeah, I don't necessarily think that. I think it's just about matching the right disc to your ability and the shot that you're trying to throw. Is going to get you the most distance. Furious George 3001 asks, how old were you when you started playing disc golf, and how long have you been playing? I've been playing since I moved out to Oregon about 11 years ago or so. 11, maybe coming up on 12 years here relatively soon. And that would put me back in my early 20s when I started, or early to mid 20s. So yeah, it's been a little while. It's been a lot of fun. Joshua Derry asks, what's your favorite part of growing the sport? Hands down has to be running this channel. I mean, this channel is definitely my favorite part of disc golf as a hobby for me. I also, of course, love just playing disc golf, first and foremost, but I think the only real impact, other than just trying to let people know about disc golf and try to get people out playing with me, even though I'm not terribly successful with that, is this channel. That's the only real thing that I do to grow the sport, to be honest. I don't like run events or clubs or any of that kind of stuff. I have this channel. I try to get people the right discs for their bag, and I try to help beginners understand concepts that could be frustrating or confusing when you first start out. And I hope to try to encourage or inspire people to throw the right discs, or what I consider to be the right discs to start out with, and learn the game in the most effective way possible. That's basically all what I'm trying to do, and hopefully it's working to some degree. Jeffrey Stelly says, of all the discs, of all your discs, which one means the most to you and why? Probably my old soft magnet. It's an orange with black stamp, 3-chain soft magnet. I've had it forever. It's been in a million different videos of mine and stuff, and I really like that disc. I haven't been carrying it for quite a while because I don't want to carry two magnets, and I don't want it to be the only one in my bag because I want to be able to throw magnets over water occasionally and in dangerous situations where I would feel nervous about losing that particular disc. So I've been leaving it at home for the most part. But I think the next time I head out to Hornings, I need to bring it with me because it's just my go-to disc in those woods, and I kind of missed it the last time I was there. I didn't have it in my bag. Dustin Sanford asks, what's your favorite sport outside of disc golf? Probably English Premier League soccer. I'm a big Chelsea fan. I have been for many years now. Since I think the first season they brought in Jose Mourinho way back in the day when they went on a crazy tear. That was the first season I watched English Premier League soccer. I liked Mourinho. I liked a lot of their players, and they were just killing everybody, so I got into them. And I'm still a big fan now of Chelsea. They're probably my favorite sports team in the world. And then from there, I also like the UFC quite a bit, although I do feel like post its sale last year or whatever when they sold it, since the Fertitas left, I feel like it's gone way downhill, and I think they need to work. They need to really start fixing some of this stuff because I think they're kind of on a downward trajectory right now when they were just crushing it for so long. They seem to be going in the other direction, and they really need to right the ship. But I enjoy fights. I find them exciting. Obviously, they can be kind of rough and gnarly sometimes, but I think there is something primal in human nature that fights are compelling, and I do enjoy mixed martial arts and mostly the UFC. Occasionally watch Bellator and stuff, but not too much. But really, it's English Premier League soccer, and disc golf is my number one at this point, though, to watch and to play. Derek Ketch asks, what's the most you'll do to retrieve a disc? All right. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to, like, trim down to my boxers and, like, go swimming. I'm unlikely to do that, like to go out to the middle of a pond or something like that to get a disc. A, because I'm not throwing anything over the pond that I can't afford to lose. That's just kind of how I roll with that. And B, just if I can see it, maybe. But if it's like at the bottom of a lake, I'm not going to free dive for it or whatever. And I'll look for it for quite a while, depending on the disc. But if it starts to get past like 20-25 minutes of looking, especially if I have people with me, then it's over. I think I bought a compass, and I did to do the initial review on the Latitude 64 compass when it was released, and I lost the first one that I had on a this stupid little mini course at Benson Lake, and it hit a tree and kicked into the shrubs, and I just could not find it. I looked for it for quite a while, and I just couldn't get it. It's really stupid. But a lot of the times when I lose discs, honestly, I just forget to pick them up. Out there, I've got test discs, and I want to throw multiple shots on a lot of the tee pads just because I like throwing, and it's easy to forget one and then just leave, and it's sitting there, and then you're at the mercy of who finds it. But I won't really go too far to retrieve a disc per se. I will tell you guys a quick story, though. Let me adjust my mic here. So, the most I ever did to retrieve a disc, it was the first time I reviewed a Vibram disc. It was the Vibram Vamp. And the crazy part about this story for me is that this is the only time that anyone who was at a high position in disc golf at a manufacturing company reached out to me to like ask me to review their disc. It was Steve Dodge. I mean, Steve Dodge is a big figure in the world of disc golf as far as I'm concerned. He's widely considered one of the best tournament directors out there. He's been running the Maple Hill Open, its various iterations for many years, and just does an amazing job. It's one of the best events in the world. and he was president of Vibram. He had just started the Disc Golf Pro Tour. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, will you check out some Vibram plastic on your channel?" I, of course, was super stoked about it. Very honored to hear from him. He sends me the disc with like a signed letter on Vibram stationery, a nice letter about thank you for your efforts helping to grow the sport and all this nice stuff. And then he signed it and everything. He sends me this beautiful disc. I got out and I was testing it. I was trying to film my buddy Zach throwing it for a field demo, and he snapped it a little too hard, and it turned over in this big, beautiful turnover and just soared deep into a construction zone. I know the video of that field testing gone wrong, I think is what it was called. I think that's still out there somewhere. Let me, I kind of want to go click over and see if it is. Let me go check it out real quick. Yeah, here it is. So it's from a year. It's from a year ago. Wow, seems like that would have been longer. Um, oh no, published in November of 2015. That's when this happened. Okay, so it's got a little views on it, and it is still public. And what happens is you can see Zach, who's got long arms and a good bit of power. He snaps this thing, and it stands up and just bombs out on a big turnover out deep into this construction zone over there. So it's like a multi hundreds of millions of dollar construction zone. They're putting in this huge new high school, and just ridiculous, you know. And there's just signs everywhere on the fence: no trespassing, violators will be prosecuted. There's camera insignias everywhere, and I don't know if there was actually cameras there or if it would have been that big of a deal for him to jump the fence. But Zach almost jumped the fence to go get it, and then we decided against it. I was pretty upset. I mean, I think I went home straight away. I was embarrassed. I was really, really frustrated, and it wasn't really his. It wasn't like it was his fault. It just turned over too much, and I didn't. He was trying to throw it on a little hyzer, I think, and just ended up throwing it flat. And it's a pretty unstable disc, and he just accidentally turned it over. It just happens. It wasn't a big deal from his end. I felt bad because I probably made him feel bad, but it wasn't. I tried not to make too big of a deal out of it, but I was just upset because here is the first time a manufacturer reaches out to me. It's Steve Dodge, sends me this beautiful disc, and now I got to hit him up and be like, "Hey, I lost the disc." You know, which I'm sure wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but it was just embarrassing for me, and I felt really bad about it. So I had to kind of do a bunch of Google work to find the main number for this company and stuff, and then I found just any person that I could reach a voicemail for or something in the Portland area, and I think they actually did call me back, and they let me know that I could, if I'm just really careful, I could go onto the site and look for a trailer there and then find somebody who works there. They'll radio it in and somebody will go grab it. So eventually some kind of foreman or some guy took a few minutes to go look for it, and I'm down there. It's freezing cold, super windy because it was November, and it was really cold that year. And he doesn't find it. He's like, "I don't know. I looked where you said. I don't see anything." I'm freaking out, I'm kind of upset. Then I go around the other side and I can see it sitting there. I look through the fence over kind of where I was, and I see it's not where it was. It's somebody had picked it up on the site and moved it over and kind of put it next to their lunchbox or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh shit," you know. And then I see this guy over there, and I start, yelling to him, waving my arms and stuff, and he hears me, throws the disc back over the fence. And I finally got it back. I was so stoked to have it, and post a review, and everything was fine. Another interesting aspect of that whole story is that when I got the disc back, it had been sitting outside in the really cold temperatures for like 2 or 3 days because I lost it, and then the site was shut down for a couple days in a row because it was Thanksgiving weekend. So I went back like that Monday or something. It had been out in the cold for days, and it was still fine. Like, had a great feel to it, grippy. It wasn't like rigid or anything like a regular disc would be. It was kind of funny. So you can go check out the field testing gone horribly wrong, Disc Golf Nerd, if you're interested. And it's just a little story of the most I've gone, the farthest I've gone to retrieve a disc. Figured it was appropriate for the question. Moving on to Don Clark, he asks, "What do you think really separates a high-level amateur player from a professional? Driving distance, short game, mental discipline, etc." And he says, "Thank you." I think it's consistency. It goes back to what I said earlier. Most high level amateur players can throw pretty far. They can hit some putts. They can approach pretty well, and they kind of have the mental discipline to be able to shoot well and score well out there on the course. But the difference is the consistency. That's why you'll see a lower level player occasionally jump up and challenge for a big win, or even get a big win out there at a big tournament. But then you see somebody like Ricky Wysocki at the very top end of the spectrum, and he's in the first top few in every single event, and it's because he's just that much more consistent. And obviously, a lot of the highest level players also throw farther and putt better than the rest of the people out there. But I think you can look at somebody like Nate Sexton, who's a very effective, extremely consistent, level playing golfer. He doesn't go for anything too crazy. He throws far and he putts great, but he's not throwing farther than a lot of the guys that he's competing with on a regular basis throw just as far as him and have the potential to putt as well as him, but he consistently hits those lines, he consistently makes those putts, and he's very just solid and dependable player. And I think that's what separates the amateurs and professionals in all fields, is the ability to do that and perform closer to your potential more of the time. Chance LeBron says, how many bowls do you smoke before you play? Bonus question, flower or wax? Well, Chance, I am not anti-cannabis by any means. It is fully legal, recreationally and otherwise, here in the beautiful state of Oregon. But it's not something that I really partake in for golf. I mostly just drink a bunch of water and get out there and throw some lines. And yeah, I'm not even one of those guys who really likes having beers when you play. I know a lot of people wouldn't even consider going out to play golf without at least a couple of beers in their bag somewhere. I'm not really that into either one. Nothing against those substances. Do whatever you want to do whenever you really want. I also don't mind if people want to smoke out on the course. That doesn't bother me at all. As long as you're not bothering somebody who's like close by or whatever, that doesn't really bother me too much. If you're cool and respectful about it, you can pretty much do your thing, and it's not going to bother me. But it's just not something I generally partake in. And he also asks, if a disc hits a tree in the woods and no one's around to see it happen, does it still make a noise? Well, if no one's around, how did the disc hit the tree? If you're the one who threw it and hit the tree and no one else is around, clearly it makes a noise, because I've heard that noise way too many times. Casey Largent says, "What is a part of your game you would like to improve?" I'd like to be able to throw at least a competent forehand tee shot, but I just don't see it on the cards for me. It actually kind of hurts for me to try it, which I think is a big issue. It's just yeah, my form's just wonky, or my body just really doesn't like that motion, and my arm and elbow and shoulder kind of don't dig it. So I don't really throw any forehands off the tee. That would be a great thing I'd like to improve, but it goes back to a couple of other questions, and the main thing I'd like to improve is consistency. I'd like to be able to play up to my potential or closer to it more of the time. On a good day, I can play pretty well, and I'd like to just be able to play that way all the time. Matt White says, what year Sexton Firebird is the least stable? I believe the 2017 version of the Sexton Firebird is the least stable, but I have not tested any of the other years to be able to tell you for certain. So yeah, that's just what I've heard from Nate and from some other folks that have mentioned it, but that's just all hearsay, unfortunately. James Harper says, of the discs you have lost over the years, which one hurt the most? Well, temporarily, that Vibram Vamp definitely got me pretty upset. I also lost a disc that had... my buddy bought it for me. It was a bottom stamp destroyer. I still have it now, actually. It was a bottom stamp destroyer that he had all my friends sign, and it might have even been like a no stamp destroyer or something. No, I think it was a bottom stamp, and he had all my friends sign it, and I ended up losing it accidentally. The first round I had it, I took it out, I threw it for a shot, and I almost got a 2 with it, and I was so focused on trying to hit my birdie putt that I forgot to pick it up. And it's one of those things, sometimes you brand new disc in your bag, you don't notice that it's not in there because you're not used to it being in there anymore. So the whole rest of the round, I didn't realize that it wasn't in there. It's a really, really, really overstable destroyer. It's probably one of the most overstable drivers I've ever thrown. And it just, yeah, just didn't need it for any other shots that round. And by the time I realized it was gone, we were actually at a different course across town or whatever, and it was gone. So eventually, I ended up getting it back because somebody who found it at Leverage Park and just put it in their bag because they have no respect or moral fiber whatsoever. Pick up a disc that has a bunch of like thoughtful well wishes from friends that says happy birthday on it and multiple phone numbers, and you just go, oh, mine. So don't stuff that in my bag. Just can't stand people with that mentality. But anyway, they did it, and then they lost it in the pond at Rooster Rock. And another person who found it, who was a good human being, called me and saw that it was clearly like a special disc and called me and gave it back to me. So yeah, I forget who that was, but yeah, just for the record, to not to go on a huge tangent or a big rant here, but if you find a disc, if it has markings on it, just call somebody. Call somebody, leave a message, leave a couple of messages, send a couple of texts, like at least put some effort into trying to get somebody their disc back. You know you would want somebody to do it for you, and if you want somebody to treat you a certain way, the only way you can control that or have any effect on that whatsoever is to act that way yourself. You know, if you would want somebody to return your disc, you have to be the kind of person who returns other people's discs. It's not that hard of a thing to figure out. I just don't understand the mentality of walking by, finding a disc on the ground that's clearly not yours, has somebody else's name and phone number on it, and you just stuff it in your bag and just walk away. Like, I don't respect you if you do that. It's just stupid. At least try. Andrew Smith, do you have a favorite plastic? I know this can vary depending on what you're doing, but is there one that stands out to you? Basically, the same question as earlier. Opto plastic, Lucid plastic. Overall, is one of my favorites. If I had to switch my whole bag to it, I don't think I would really dig putting with a Opto or Lucid putter all the time. That wouldn't be ideal, but I would rather do that than have no drivers or mids in it because it's just such a solid plastic and maintains its flight for a really long time as well, which I really like. Alex Gedra asks, how many putting styles have you gone through before you settled into your current style? A lot of nuanced variations, and I honestly am not even exactly sure what my current style is. I just know it's been working. I guess it's kind of a push, spin, blend kind of a thing. I essentially try to visualize Paul Macbeth when I line up the putt. I try to stand in a very similar manner to him. For whatever reason, it helps me kind of focus it in. I also like to lean my weight forward and kind of reach the disc out towards the basket a couple times to make sure I know where I want to end up after I pull back. And then I usually kind of keep my weight mostly leaned back already, and then I'll bring my arm down and then bring it back up, but rather than just really let it flop out of my hand, I do put a little bit of spin and wrist on it. So yeah, but I've done a lot of different kind of nuances to it, mostly switching back and forth between what I'm doing now and then like more of a spin putt years ago. But I've never been able to do a true pitch putt where you really like Nico, where you just kind of swing your arm and it pops out. I can't figure out how to get the release down to put energy on it from that kind of stance and that kind of arm swing. It just doesn't work for me. I got to put some kind of wrist on it. And I have been putting really well. I haven't been the best. The last round I played wasn't the best I've done. I still hit a couple of nice ones, and for the most part, since I've switched to the Jawbreaker magnets, I've kind of dialed in my routine. I've been really happy with my putting and quite contented with it. So if I could putt as well as I've been putting over the spring from now on, and even a little better, I'll be very happy with it. Danielle Moore asks, what is your go-to disc? Pretty basic question. Let's see. It's hard to say across the board. You know, I have go-tos in each speed range, but I'd have to say go-to disc is probably the magnet throughout the years. I've just had one for so long, and it's been really effective for me. Paul Ward asks, what was your first disc? I think I answered this in the last episode. a Innova Thumbtrack Birdie, and a DX Valkyrie were my first 2 discs. I got them for Christmas the first year after I moved to Oregon. And then Caleb Houston, I think this will be the last one. Caleb Houston asks, how do you help grow disc golf in your community? I don't really, outside of potentially occasionally taking people out to play with me and that sort of thing, and also trying to just spread the word about disc golf to friends and folks that I run into out there in my personal life. But for the most part, the only way I really put effort into growing disc golf in the disc golf community is here on YouTube. Let's finish on this one right here. Jason Non. I'm going to highlight it so I know where I left off. Jason Non asks, if you could move to anywhere in the country for disc golf, where would you go? Without really traveling much around the country and seeing too many different courses, I really don't know. But I would probably say Charlotte, North Carolina. That's what I would think. There's just so much golf and wooded golf there. I think I would dig it. I don't think I would dig the humidity there and the heat and stuff in the summertime, and I have no plans to move outside of Oregon at this point in my life. I would also, of all the places I would consider moving to in the country outside of Oregon, disc golf or no disc golf, would probably be Salt Lake City. I have some family there. My uncle and his family live there, and he's awesome, and the area is just rad. The Rockies down there, just beautiful. Your discs fly farther, and they're a little more stable, but it's just a really, really nice place. The fishing down there, swimming, the hiking, all that stuff is really nice, and they do have some pretty solid disc golf in Utah as well, so that's probably where I would move to if I were to leave Oregon for some reason. It would be maybe Washington State, but most likely I would move down to Salt Lake City, because I think it's cheaper there right now than it is here in Oregon, Portland at least, and it's a really pretty place. But if I was going to move somewhere just like with disc golf in mind, it would probably be Charlotte. They seem like they have so many nice wooded courses down there. So that is this episode of the podcast. Thanks very much for listening. I will check you guys very soon. All right, cheers.